Thank you so much, Steffi. And before we start the panel, I think we should all give the amazing Steffi Czerny a very big round of applause. And it's very exciting today to continue this series of panels we've been developing, as Steffi said, over the last 20 years. Actually at DLD with art and technology. Billy Kluwer coined in the 1960s the idea with Whitman of experiments in art and technology. We talk about new experiments in art and technology. And of course, video games play an essential role in that. Today, around 3 billion people interact one way or the other with video games. And when we go to artist studio, we see more and more artists actually working with this medium. Video games might be to the 21st century what movies were to the 20th century, and maybe the novel to the 19th century. There are many different ways how actually artists engage with video games, sometimes with going into existing video games, sometimes by deconstructing existing video games, but most interestingly, of course, by building their own video games. And today we have two amazing artists with us, Danielle Brathwaite-Shirley and Leo Castaneda, who both for many years have been developing their own video games as a way of world building. And they're going to tell us about these games. They're going to show us some of the works they're doing at the moment. So please give them a very, very warm welcome. Danielle Brathwaite-Shirley, Leo Castaneda.
Thank you.
So welcome Danielle and welcome Leo. I wanted to kind of begin with the beginning because, of course, we've had many conversations, previously about video games with you in the context of the Serpentine, where we work on actually a whole series of projects with our tech department with video games at an exhibition of Danielle right now, which will actually open in autumn. With Leo, we had dialogues in Miami about exactly the same topics, and I thought it would be interesting to kind of begin with you telling us a little bit about what inspires you, about telling us about pioneers of video games. The future is sometimes invented with fragments from the past. Shall we start with Danielle?
So I think I'm very inspired by video games in general. I think we don't often look back at video games and the engines that they're made out of as mediums and pieces of art. We often think of them as small bits of entertainment, a small bit of consumerism that you paid for, and now it no longer has any interest or any meaning in the world now. But if you look at video games as pieces of art and the engines that they're using as mediums, you can look at every game made every year and figure out what it's doing to the person and what emotional state it can put them in. And so you can peer back into the past, pick something up. For example, Muriel Tramis made a game in 1989 called Mawillow, in which she archived a tale about essentially a slave owner burying money and with slaves and killing the slaves, and so that no one would find the money. And she archived that within a video game. And so that video game stands as a testament to that real world fairy tale that is in Martinique and is told around Martinique. And so for me, games like that I find very inspiring. And so I am really trying to look at games in the past as mediums and tools to connect with you as people.
Thank you so much, Daniel. And Leo, I would like to ask you the same question, and also maybe talk about inspirations from video games. But I was also very fascinated to hear that your grandmother, who is actually a painter, is also an inspiration.
Yes. So, I grew up in Colombia, so I grew up in a family of artists that were really into Latin American abstraction and surrealism, and also architecture, so they definitely influenced me. But in Colombia, the global medium of video games was also very present, so the experience of playing Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time was the first time that I felt that, around 10 years old, that I felt that games could definitely be art. And nowadays, I'm also really inspired by indie video games such as Viewfinder, where you take photos of the world and then they become actual three-dimensional spaces, or Cocoon, like different puzzle games that are trying to push the limits of what a game could be. And and also very inspired by the landscapes that I grew up around in Colombia, and currently live in Miami, so like South Florida, semi-tropical landscapes. Yeah.
And I had the feeling also the kind of paintings of your grandmother have
Yes.
a lot to do with ecology, so it's also about kind of connecting to the environment. There's a communion with the environment.
Yes. She paints abstractions of the Amazon rainforest, and I basically grew up around her studio. And we're actually collaborating on a level for the video game that I'm working on.
And maybe another pioneer we wanted to talk about is Rebecca Allen. I know, Danielle, that for you, Rebecca is very important. I think it's important at this moment when new generations of artists, work on video games to recognize pioneers. Rebecca has worked with video games, has worked in Germany with Kraftwerk. Can you tell us about the inspiration from Rebecca, who has inspired you, who has inspired Ian Chang, who has inspired Refik Anadol, who was here last year?
Yeah, I feel like Rebecca Allen, I remember coming across her work and just being blown away and by her, actually the Kraftwerk work, when she basically invented motion capture. And technology is really interesting in that how many people it buries every year. And I feel like she was buried in a very long time, even though she'd done so much, and now is kind of resurging. But I kind of want to get back to a point of, first of all, I got to do the thing. First of all, so I just want to break this thing. So usually we're in a much more interactive world than when we're used to. And so we're usually just watching someone talk, and I hate this. So I'm going to break this right now. So I'm going to say hello, and you can say hello back. So I'm going to say hello. We're going to do it better. I'm going to say hello. Hello. Perfect. And then we're going to do something else. So interactivity is my main thing. I can talk, but it's not interesting. You're more interested than I am. So I want you to try a thing, and this is great for your networking. I want you to pick a random person in the room and just stare at them in their eyes. So don't look at me. Pick a random person in the room and just stare at them and keep staring at them. Keep staring at them. And I want you to push past that weird awkwardness. It should be someone you don't know, don't cheat. And I want you to push past that awkwardness, push past all those weird feelings. And I want you to say something that you won't mean, but I want you to say it to this person. You're looking at me, look away from me. I want you to say, I care about how you feel.
Oh.
Say it again, say it louder. Say it, I care about how you feel.
I care about how you feel.
Say, I care about how you think of me. And so that is the main purpose of my work. My main purpose of my work is to get people to connect to other people. It's not about what's on screen, which I often think we're very, very drawn into. It's about connecting to random strangers all the time. The world that we're currently in is exponentially more interactive. The best way to get the things out of AI isn't to use it as a search engine. It's to develop a method of using it that's for yourself unique and does not get generic results. And so we need to test out how we break the barriers of I say something and I'm getting my result that I expect, and actually learn how to interact with things that do not have a binary outcome. We have quantum computing coming up right now that doesn't work in binary systems at all. So we're going to have to relearn our approach to all these things. And my work essentially is about breaking that. And so I look at Rebecca Allen as pioneers because Rebecca Allen broke everything. She broke everything wide open. And I feel that we need to break our approach to experiences away from consumerism, where we sit in silence and we do something, to a much more, let's say, morphogenic kind of togetherness in interactivity. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And that is end of chapter 1. We talked about inspirations, and we need to think about, memory of pioneers. And now we're going to talk about your work. We're going to talk about the extreme present, what you're working on right now. We're going to talk about the future of your work. We're going to talk about world building. And Danielle, you said that building worlds digitally gives you the chance to think about the foundations that you are constructing on. You often build on top of the words, images, videos, and sounds of Black trans people to ensure that their history is the foundation of the world you're building, so they will be able to hold the stories that you want to tell. So that's, the idea of world building. And that's also true for Leo. You, when I was in the studio, talked about world building through your games. You talked about participation, as Danielle does. And maybe we can begin with you to now look at images, and maybe you can talk us through the game you are working on at the moment.
Okay.
So if you can have the little film, there is a short film, I think, yeah, of 5 minutes.
This game started as a painting series about 15 years ago, but now where it's at is it's a game called Camoflux, Levels and Bosses. It's a stealth exploration game where bodies, technology, and landscapes fuse. So you navigate these environments by camouflaging and channeling circuits of environmental energy to reshape a cyclical cataclysm. The game is experienced through an episodic digital game and also through exhibitions at museums, art spaces, and tech conferences. And then players, through that experience, travel to surreal worlds and try to unearth neo-primordial survival skills. And the worlds are highly influenced by artists like Roberto Mata, Remedios Varo. Like it's trying to fuse Latin American surrealism, also the biomes from the different places I grew up around, and also to try to reimagine the antagonism structures in video games, where you have the bosses that are usually adversaries. Like here it's more about having different relational archetypes such as reciprocity or collaboration. So right now, this is showing some of the abilities. So you have these holographic patterns that you're able to sense through an awareness state or deep listening. And then you're able to kind of channel this electromagnetic energy and move. By syncing light between different actors in the environment, you're able to move energy around. So those are these kind of braided mechanical mangroves. The beings in this game, they live in a very chaotic world, but they sustainably live in that chaotic world. So they have these kind of hydroelectric plants that they're able to sync with. There's another ability, which is the ability to quell turbulence through touch. So the player sensed that these kind of cloud forms had sensitivity to touch. So if you kind of create this field around the landscape there, the particles harden into landscape that you can walk over. And this is in the interior of this kind of cataclysmic explosion where liquid, solids, and gases are interchangeable. So lots of living landscapes where the source of the energy of these beings is also the source of big change or their destruction. And then the last ability that's really explored is camouflage. So you're able to constantly shift your identity and take a texture from any part of the environment as information. So here's just an example of getting up to this door, and the door needs a specific texture. So you can kind of swim there, get the texture, and open it. But that opens up the possibility of tons of narrative and puzzle situations, like using the shift of identity. And this is a visualization of the first boss. So the first boss is the landscape personified as an entity, and you can kind of see this kind of initial binary relationship between the player and the boss. But then the relationship is shown to be that they're they're both versions of the same being at different timelines. This being, if you're aggressive to it, it's exponentially aggressive towards you. If you're kind to it and kind of listen to its needs, it's exponentially kind to you. So kind of almost like a metaphor for how nature could be. And then quickly, this is kind of the process of turning handmade paintings into textures from that world. So that kind of gives the digital, this analog feeling that it makes it more tangible. And then very quickly, just the trajectory. So from the first painting that I made in the series, 2009, to early experiments of 2014 in VR and sculpture, creating the interiors in VR, mapping out what those could be, painting with VR, This is at Heck in Basel, like exploring the game booth structures of using furniture and multimedia installations. And that's at the Perez Art Museum in Miami, just a video installation. And then finally, this is what I'm most passionate about, which is like the bridging of audiences. So this is an exhibition through the Young Arts Fellowship in Miami, where I was able to bring a gaming booth into the actual gaming audience. So not having a hierarchy of a venue, but having something where the actual gamers are able to experience the work, and it's not something that's taking something interesting and putting in the art world, but more of a cross-pollination of audiences. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leo. And of course, we are not here in either a digital environment or a physical environment or analog environment. It's really mixed reality, which is of course also why there is this exciting potential now of showing video games in museums. It's a new form of Gesamtkunstwerk. It's installation, it's sculpture, it's sound, it's image. You build furniture. And that, of course, brings us also to you, Danielle, because that's also true for you. We can say your work is also mixed reality. You have a lot of physical aspects in your work, in your games. Can you tell us a little bit what you're working on right now?
Yeah, so what I'm working on right now is to try and figure out how to make a space usable to process emotion. And so you would come to the gallery with a particular emotion, could be hate, hope, anger, and change the entire gallery to represent that. So everyone in the gallery will feel your hate, your anger, your hope. And then that could be terrifying, I agree. And then you go through that and try and process that together. And so the game acts more as a mediator to that rather than just being experienced on screen. And I think the reason that I do a lot of multimedia installations, and it's usually about creating an environment, is because I want the art spaces to have more of a purpose. I want them to be spaces that people want to go to because they're feeling a certain way or because they don't understand how to talk about something. And that could be anything from a very, very unintellectual to very super high intellectual. I feel like the art spaces need to facilitate these conversations offline. And so what I'm working on essentially is a digital mediator. That comes in and helps you connect to people on emotions that you're not sure how to share.
Shall we see some images? I think you
I think I have
images
some
also,
images,
so maybe we could start them.
So it makes more sense of what you're seeing.
Yeah.
So this is an installation I did with LAS in Berkheim. And essentially this whole space was about a morality test. So you came in to clean your soul. I did not tell you if your soul is dirty or not. That's completely up to you. I am not some higher being. But you came in to see if your soul needed cleaning, and you left thinking about yourself. And I think something very important about tech and about interactivity and building spaces that you interact with is that you often leave the artwork with a bespoke experience, and you leave thinking about who you are and what you did. The main artwork is not what you see on screen, it's the journey you took, it's the decisions you made, it's how you made someone uncomfortable over the choice that you made in that space. And I'm much more about creating those environments and crafting the experience where you do not leave thinking this was good art. If you leave thinking this was good art, I have failed. You should leave thinking, I messed up. Or I feel like I am the better person, or this is what I need to do. I want you to be thinking about yourself when you're leaving. And so yes, the images are nice, but that's not the main thing. When you leave, it's all about the choices that you have done in the experience. And I feel like that's something that only interactivity gives, and that's something that breaks this tradition of art that we have, where there is an artist that does the work, and there's a consumer that interprets it in whatever way they like, and they leave thinking about the art. I much prefer you thinking about yourself.
Now maybe we could hear a little bit more about also the connection to performance from you, because we are working on this exhibition. We hope you can all come to the Serpentine in London this autumn. It will be from October onwards, so October 25. And in this exhibition there will be also a lot of performance. There's a whole performative dimension. And that's true, I think, for a lot of your projects.
Yeah, so something that's kind of new in this work is that essentially, you may come and see the audience doing things that they're not usually doing in galleries. So they might be singing, shouting, praying. And usually I'm doing the performance. I'm sure you can tell that I like performing. I would sing now if I could, or if you sung with me. Maybe we'll try that at the end. But for me, performance is an amazing way to break down some of those barriers, to get a bit closer to someone, to get a bit closer to the emotions, and to feel something important. And I'm all about the feeling. I'm all about those just innate human emotions and connections. And so for me, performing is an amazing way to do that. Like, I can do simple things like that. If I stand up and if I go into the middle of this room, and if this side says, you keep saying that, keep doing it, louder, louder, louder. And if this side goes, wow. And do it louder, go louder, go louder, go louder, louder, louder. And if I say, okay, then we end. Like, we don't do that anymore. We don't do that as a community anymore. We have lost that. And that's what I'm trying to bring back. It's better if I demonstrate it than say it.
Now, Leo, this is also something very important in your work, the performativity, the also kind of participation with the audience. And you've come up actually with a new notion in relation to that and technology. You want your games to have exponential reciprocity. Can you explain to us that new concept?
Okay, so that concept is in particular to the first boss of the game, the one that I was showing that it's almost like a metaphor for, yeah, it could be interpreted as a metaphor for nature, or like a future being that one becomes when one becomes nature, or one is nature. So yeah, just a being that if you care for it, it gives you exponential care, or it like sacrifices itself for you, or if you're very aggressive to it, it destroys you, not to the point of death, but just to the point of lots of learning. So yeah, that's in particular the exponential reciprocity. In terms of performance, yeah, I'm super interested in the embodiment of mythologies in video games and cosplay, and how as game artists we're able to kind of create new mythologies to adapt to the future, and similar to how you have people dressing up as Marvel characters, we can have people dress up as characters from Danielle's game, or you know, and that's a contribution that happens a lot in video games, where you have people getting so involved in the media that they become participants in their life beyond the experience of playing the game.
Thank you, Leo. Now we've talked about the past, we've talked about the present in your work. Last chapter of this panel, we've got 2 minutes. Last chapter is about the future. And I think it's always interesting to hear about artists' unrealized projects. We know a lot about architects' unrealized projects because they publish them, it's part of competitions. But artists' unrealized projects are usually unknown, and we know very little about unrealized video games. Can you tell us about one of your favorite unrealized projects? Maybe we can with Danielle.
Yeah, I think I might have told you this one before, but essentially, I've adapted a little bit though. I want to make a themed virus that works with AI that over a period of 3 to 4 months kills a computer. You would take a series of computers from important places, so maybe like a police station, a government building, and you would slowly kill that computer. And over the period of time, a themed virus, if you don't know, can spit out images, videos, games. And so essentially, when you come into the experience, at whatever point of that computer is at dying, you may be playing a game, or you may be playing, or you may be seeing a film, or maybe seeing an image. And working with AI with this, I think would be really interesting. I'm also super interested in how much an AI can kill a computer if it has the capabilities of a malware. And so that's kind of my unrealized project.
Thank you. Leo, your unrealized once the chapters of the game are complete, I would love to turn it into an opera that would be shown in theaters, but also in public places. And I'm also really interested in self-generated content. So how to kind of open the game so that other people could add their own, like Fortnite or Roblox or different games like that, but like having like an exquisite corpse narrative to world building.
Amazing. We hope you can all come to London in October. Bettina Kroik and I and our teams at the Serpentine want to invite you all to Danielle's exhibition, an exhibition which will be curated by Tamara Clark-Brown.
What's your unrealized project?
My unrealized project, there's so many. I want to start a kind of a Black Mountain College for the 21st century, so a new form of interdisciplinary school. That's an unrealized project.
Wow.
I always ask artists since the 90s about their unrealized projects. So there is an archive of thousands of them, and I always wanted to do a big exhibition of all these unrealized projects because it's kind of a thing. I think it would be inspiring. But then, whenever we try to realize it, it kind of seems to remain unrealized. So that's an unrealized project. And then there is a last one, which is that I want to write a novel. But we should give a big round of applause to our two amazing speakers, Danielle Brathwaite-Shirley.